Soccer is definitely one of the highest skilled sports in the world. It is also one of the more physically demanding. If you want to be the best soccer player you can be, you have to do more than just scrimmage, play small-sided games, juggle, and work on ball drills. I grew up playing soccer from the ages of 3 to 23. And back in that time, and still to this day, there is way too much of a stigma from, let's say, the old school soccer coach that swears they played semi-pro somewhere, telling you to not strength train because it's going to slow you down. Well, it's definitely not true, and why in this video, we're going to go over 7 of the best sports performance training concepts that you need to do as a soccer player, or football, depending on where you come from in the world. All 7 of these are going to be outside the norm of all the other basic stuff like squats, bench, pull-ups, power cleans, and what have you. Those things everyone pretty much already knows about. These 7 are going to be a little bit more specific to soccer, and outside of the basics that I can guarantee you will implement one, if not several of these, into your training regimen. I'm going to go over 2 exercises you can use in your warm-up for injury prevention or plyometrics, 2 speed drills, one focused more on linear speed and the other on change of direction, 2 strength exercises, and 1 power. Quick little stoppage. If you've yet to subscribe to this channel, now is the time. Over my next several videos or videos that are already out, I'm basically going through all of the top sports performance channels on YouTube and looking up their most popular videos, then combining them and or redoing their videos in a more condensed or up-to-date format, taking out all of the extra talking, combining and weigh out better options for exercises, and saving you time. Hit that button, check out the other videos, and thank you. When it comes to soccer, one component that oftentimes gets overlooked is an athlete's ability to plant and kick a ball. Keyword, plant, not just kick. There is so much emphasis on speed, change direction, and being able to kick hard or accurate, but nowhere near enough focus on planting, or better put, single leg deceleration. You see, when not only planting and kicking a ball, but when cutting and changing direction, one of the most important details is the ability to decelerate quickly in order to move faster or kick harder. Your ability to cut is heavily weighed in your ability to be able to slow down. You can only cut as fast as you can slow down, and the faster you can slow down, the faster you can change direction. But also, the harder you can plant or decelerate on one leg, the harder you're going to be able to kick a ball and or pass more accurately. So that's where these first 2 drills come in for your warm-up. The first one is a simple single leg hop to freeze, initially focusing on smaller hops with a softer landing, good control, and balance. Then over time, increasing the distance of the hop, thus increasing the difficulty. Then you can add a bounce into this, where instead of hop to freeze, you hop, bounce, then freeze. And there's also a third variation, which is hop, bounce 2 times, then freeze. Adding these into a warm-up at lower intensities and focus on both legs will add in a ton of injury prevention qualities to your warm-up. And these seem incredibly simple, but don't sleep on these concepts. As far as a component, being able to do this is not only going to reduce your risk of injury, but it's going to work on your ability to put power into the ground on one leg, which is pretty much everything you do in your sport. The frequency of doing them in your warm-up has some key benefits that's not oftentimes looked at. Not all movements are about power output, but more about body control and movement prep. The second one for the warm-up is skater jumps. These are more geared towards lateral movement and change direction. This one I also recommend 3 variations. The first one being a simple load, skate, and freeze, pushing from one foot and landing softly under control on the other. The next step up is skating forward small, immediately back medium in distance, and finally out long. So think small, medium, and then long. So each portion is ascending in distance and power output. Then the final, and my favorite of the 3, is a double bounce into a skate, landing on one foot. Both of these 2 exercises that we went over can be utilized in a warm-up. That is before a game or before practices. You want to look at starting off slower or smaller and then gradually building over time. Or these movements can be done outside of a warm-up and be more focused on power output, so you're actually trying to cover as much distance as you possibly can. Either way, rep-wise, you're looking to do 2 to 3 sets on each leg for 5 to 6 repetitions. The next 2 drills, we're going to go into the speed category of the video. If you've seen any of my other videos, you've probably seen me talk about sled sprints, and that's the first one on this list. But I'm going to finally be talking about using them in a different manner, so stay with me here. With sled sprints and soccer players, I really like them to focus not only the 15 to 30 yard distances, but also the longer distances. Work on some top end speed or maximal speed. Soccer is one of those sports where you're definitely going to need to be able to get up to full speed quickly, but you're going to be running or sprinting those longer distance more often than something like a basketball game. With longer distance sled sprints, think 30 yards and upwards of the 100 yard sprints. And with those longer distances, the sled shouldn't be super heavy. We want our athletes to have the capability of being able to get into a more upright position. And if the sled's too heavy, there's no way they're going to be able to get upright, so we're not going to be able to work on as much top end speed or max speed sprinting technique. So for most people, the sled should be between 10 to 15% of their body weight. I'll use a 50-yard sprint for this example. Do one sled sprint for 50 yards, take a 2 to 3 minute break, and one more sled sprint. Then another 2 to 3 minute break. After, do 2 regular sprints for 50 yards with the same break times for 6 to 12 total sprints inside of a full workout. That's it. And for soccer athletes, I know this is going to seem like really long breaks because you're so used to go, 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 and you tend to be, or typically be, in pretty good shape. But you have to trust the science on this one. You aren't focusing on conditioning here. We're focusing on speed training or sprinting faster. And if you don't take a long enough break, you're not going to be able to sprint as close to 100% effort consistently, especially on these longer distances, which is going to reduce your ability to actually work on that power output, which is not going to be directed more towards speed training. So take the breaks, it's going to be okay. Then as far as the shorter distances go, you can pretty much do the same thing with slightly shorter breaks and definitely have your sleds, starting off with 20% body weight and working up to 50 to 60% of their body weight. And you're looking to work in the 15 to 30 yard range. The second drill in this category is more focused on change of direction. There are so many drill options when it comes to cutting, but I think this combo is my favorite, especially for soccer athletes. Bungee shuffle cuts contrasted with series of cutting around cones, hurdles, or poles. If you don't have a bungee like this, you can just omit it and do the other drill. The bungees are a great tool though. There's a lot of stuff that can be done with them, and they're not super expensive if you just get them on Amazon or somewhere. In this scenario, simply shuffle out, then back, quickly cutting in the opposite direction. Being sure to really shift your feet hard underneath you. Stay tight and change direction as quick as possible against the resistance of the bungee. Do 3 to 4 sets of 5 to 6 reps on each side. Then after or in between each bungee set, you can do this drill. Take 4 to 5 hurdles, cut through them, sprint 10 yards, cut through poles, and sprint out. The setup of this drill can be adapted in many ways based on the space you have. With even more space, especially outside, you can go 10 to 15 yards sprint to the hurdles, cut through, 10 to 15 yards to the poles, and 10 to 15 yards out. A drill like this, when done at high speeds and effort, is pretty simple in design, but very effective when done often and well. Now, let's get into the strength category. When it comes to strength training, the basics are always going to be incredibly important. So outside of the basics, I wanted to pick 2 strength exercises that you don't see as prevalent when it comes to just overall programming, and wanted to gear it really close or tight to soccer needs when it comes to injury prevention or just overall movement. Soccer players lower body wise, not only because of the constant running, but because they're as obvious enough playing with their feet, tend to be higher on the list of injuries. Kicking all the time, reaching for the ball, and through the angles forced upon their movement, it can be pretty taxing on their legs in multiple facets. That's where the first one here I chose is a cable hip flexor exercise. Simply take a band around the foot or ankle, hold on in something out in front of you, and pull into flexion, all while slowly reaching back into the rep. Couple of things before you say this is too simple or can I just do this with a band? No. The big secret or hidden benefit that most don't see is the big range of motion or stretch in which the hip flexor has to go through when doing this exercise with the cables. As you can see, the leg is able to go behind my other hip, allowing for a bigger stretch. This stretch and range of motion will optimally allow you to strengthen your hip flexor in a way that will greatly reduce injury and also increase kicking power or leg speed for sprinting. The hip flexor tends to be a forgotten about muscle group to directly train, but an all too important one to skip. So there you go. So start off with 3 sets of 10 on each leg, and then just like every other strength movement, add in some sets, lower the rep ranges, and increase the weight. Then the second strength exercise is a lateral lunge. This bang for buck in comparison to a split squat or lunge, which you should also be doing, hits one important key part that those two don't do as well, and that is, simply put, your groin area. Those adductors, that groin area gets put upon a ton of stress because you're constantly putting your foot on the ball and you're having to pull in and push out. I remember the first time I did these when I was 17 or 18 years old. It was my senior year of high school and I was heavily playing soccer at the time. And it felt like my groin was going to snap because I was weak in that area and definitely really tight. The in-range flexibility, all while loading up the other leg, really tackles the glutes and hamstrings as well. And as an added bonus, here's a core exercise all soccer players, or actually all athletes, should be doing. I call it sprinter core. It's a great one. And if you're one of my soccer athletes watching, comment how much you love them as well. Then the last category, I have one exercise for power, and that is dumbbell jumps. Today I'm going to talk about 2 variations. I've done several videos on this topic. Link in the description below if you want to go check those out. I basically just go into more depth details on these components and other exercises that you can do with them. Before we get into them though, you might be thinking, well, as a soccer player, I don't jump that much, so why do I need to jump or work on dumbbell jumps? This answer could be incredibly long, but to keep it short and simple, those who jump higher are the ones who oftentimes get to run faster. Think Ronaldo's famous jump. Also, like we talked about in the beginning of the video, the more force you can absorb, the faster you'll be able to slow down and cut. The first one I'm going to talk about about is the least common one of the two, and that is a split stance dumbbell jump. Put your feet in a 2-point position. So think like you're going to take off into a sprint. From here, rise up to the balls of your feet with weights in each hand. Load into the front leg, keeping a tight core and upright posture. The back heel will stay off the ground. Jump as high as you can and land softly. These contrast or pair great with box jumps in a similar fashion. If you really want to get fancy later on, you can even do them squared up and snap into the loaded split stance position. And the second version we're going to talk about is just a regular jump to land. Starting off again in the balls of your feet, loading aggressively and quickly into the jump. Be sure to land soft here as well. Pair these with regular box jumps. Programming wise, start off with 3 sets of 5 with the dumbbell jumps and 3 sets of 5 with the box jumps. Then over time, you can increase the amount of weight you're using during these dumbbell jumps. Just make sure that you're taking long enough breaks and you're jumping as high as you can. There you go, soccer athletes. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment, or if you want me to do another video, I will. You comment, I'll take care of it. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.